1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, Mr. Ben, it's good to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Long time no see. Hope you've had a lovely summer holidays. I hope you have too. Pray tell, Monsieur Ben, what are we looking at today?
Today is an exciting day for me. Recently, Gibson have launched these, which are 3 of the new Murphy Lab series acoustics. Now, the Murphy Lab has been around for a while doing electric guitars, but this is the first time they've applied their aging process to the range of acoustics. I was very excited, and I still am, because they're lovely. So
before we go and pour another can of petrol on the whole relic debate, that it's just for posers, I think, it's deeper than that, right? And I think maybe everyone watching will accept that this idea that old acoustics are better, whatever, than new acoustics. I think everybody, even Martin's advertising slogan is, I'm going to get the slogan wrong, but it implies that essentially the day you take your Martin guitar home will be the worst it ever sounds.
Yeah, absolutely.
It will just...
Yeah, like you need to break the wood in and just kind of, generally give it a bit of playing in so the top can move and everything can do all its, all the stuff that you really want it to do.
So Gibson have invested a bucket load of money in the Montana factory. It's a different, they're built in a different place where the humidity is more appropriate for making acoustic guitars compared to Nashville. And they've made acoustics out of Bozeman, Montana for ever and ever and ever, and stuck to that. So they started making 2 or 3 years ago these sort of period correct vintage models. So we've got a Hummingbird J45 and an L-00 here. There's a bigger range of these guitars if you're not interested in the Murphy Lab stuff.
Yes.
But they picked 5, didn't they, to go through Murphy Lab.
From kind of specific years, and they've really gone on a deep dive into the specs and the wood and the construction and stuff from each year of these kind of specific models.
So we'll talk about these 3 models in some more depth, but can you take me through... People, I think, and it's always slightly depressing when people see a relic guitar and they go, hey, it just looks like it's been dragged through a car park, and you end up going, there is more to it than that, but fine. But on an acoustic, let's talk specifically, because I think the torrefaction process of the wood is something that maybe hasn't or isn't talked about on electric guitars, whereas on acoustic guitars, it's a technique that has been around for a while now, hasn't it, to sort of artificially speed up the aging process of the wood.
That's it, and it's to do with, kind of the way, like you say, the way that wood ages when it's, when it's played and it goes through all those kind of vibrations over and over, and like, just, the way it kind of dries out in a specific way. And they try, I think, with these guitars, certainly they're thermally aged. They've thermally aged the wood to try and kind of accelerate that process to get them to the stage where they're sounding closer to the the original models.
So the next step of the Murphy Lab side of things will be around the replicating how played in something feels.
Yeah, I mean,
so talk about
I'll hold my hands up, and when people started relicking guitars, I was like, this is terrible. What do people do? But these, I think, when I think of a relic guitar, you kind of think of someone who's, like you say, taken a bag of spanners to a Strat and knocked 7 bells out of it. These have been made to feel like they've been played for a long time. So, and they do. Like I've been really lucky to play quite a few old acoustic guitars over the years, and they do have a feel to them. You can, and it's the kind of thing. I watched there's a video on the Gibson website which is really good with Tom Murphy from the Murphy Lab explaining the kind of processes they go through, and it's the little details, like the way they kind of roll the edge of the fingerboard here to replicate the wear. And I know we were talking about on this J45, there's a little mark and things like that, which make it look and feel like someone's been playing it for 50 years, which is great. And it does. They do feel like old guitars.
Yeah, and I suppose lastly, again, there's an element around what would happen to a nitrocellulose finish over time, which is that there would be a certain amount of sinking into the wood, there'd be a certain amount of evaporation, and there'd be a certain amount of wear just through repetitive contact with skin.
They're very brittle finishes. Like as they age, they get brittle, so they flake off. So I think, particularly, it's not so noticeable on these, but on the electrics, you can really see where that nitro kind of gets chipped off.
But there is a concept that the thinner you can make the finish on the guitar, therefore, the more it allows the resonance of the wood. Yeah. So look, that's the thinking behind it. I mean, there are some. I think there is some valid economics as well. If you wanted a 60s Hummingbird. There's a hyper finite supply of those. The chances of you beginning to go to a shop and try one is slim. You might have to buy one sight unseen from a collector. Of course, what these guitars don't have is the sense that which you would have got on 50, 60-year-old guitar is essentially, that they're not creating the sort of unwanted side effects of aging, which would be where the top's bow or bracing starts to come loose as
particularly
the glue dries
out. Old
out.
acoustic guitars, like neck resets. If you buy an old acoustic guitar, a lot of the time it's going to need a neck reset, whereas these obviously won't.
So kind of you're getting the upside of the old stuff without the downside of the old stuff. We looked at some of the pricing that you could go and buy an original one of these for, and it's not as crazy as Les Pauls and Strats. No. If you wanted a 59 Les Paul, you could buy a Murphy Lab one for $6 or $7 grand, a real one, $500,000. It's like, these are all, I mean, we were typically finding you could still go shopping for original ones of these, anything from $5,000 to $15,000, sort of depending on, so actually on some of these, maybe the economics is less of a compelling argument to go look at these, because these are all from the Murphy Lab. These are all sort of £5,000 to £7,000, aren't they, depending on which one you buy. So I think it's more a question that you've got choice now. You can go and try some. You've got the pros of, like, the plus side of the aging without the downside of the aging. You've got that sense of, if it does get lost or damaged in transit, whilst you're touring or whatever like that, it's not quite so heartbreaking. They are replaceable. What they absolutely aren't going to do is accrue in value the way an original one would. So it's not. If you're buying a vintage guitar for collectible reasons, these aren't trying to convince you to buy one of these. No. These are for players, aren't they? If you want a vintage guitar to play, I think there's a compelling reason. Anyway, enough talking. That guitar is, for me personally, the one that got away. I was in Guitar Centre when I was at the NAMM show. I'd gone to Guitar Centre. They had a early 60s Hummingbird in that colour. I'm talking at least 15 years ago, and even then I think it was $4,000. I didn't have $4,000, so I didn't buy it, and I've regretted it ever since. So I am...
Do you want to have a go?
Well, no, I want to hear you. I will actually, but I'd like to hear you. Can you tell us about what's the build around a 1960 Hummingbird? Why is the year significant? And then let's hear it.
It was launched in 1960. The Hummingbird. It's the first square-shoulder dreadnought that Gibson put out, and it came out in 1960. It became a big guitar in the kind of 60s singer-songwriter movement. It was a lot of kind of country singers you see playing them, like Linda Ronstadt. I think there's a famous picture of her with one. It's a great big songwriter's guitar. This one has got a thermally aged Sitka spruce top, mahogany back and sides. It's got hide glue. It's got all the kind of 1960 construction elements on the bracing.
Beautiful grain on the top. Really stunning. Like very even.
Yeah.
top to bottom grain.
It's beautiful. I mean, it's got the kind of wear around here, where I would put it with my thumb pick, and it's got the kind of lacquer checking and all that stuff. But it's a big, wonderful sounding dreadnought.
As it stands at the moment, they're only doing light aging on the acoustics. So whether we'll see anything heavier than that in the future, I guess depends on the success of these. But yeah, I mean,
this is enough, I think.
Come on then, let's give it a strum.
So, I mean, it's big chords on this, isn't it? Surely, that's the thing. Glorious.
The aging thing has, for me, I think such a psychological upside that I think the Hummingbird is one of the dearer ones, so that's probably the 6 to 7
I think so, yeah.
If that was immaculate and I'd taken it home and there wasn't a mark on it, I think I would be like, don't use a plectrum, play with your fingers, be careful. I love the fact that the first war wounds are already on it, so just it doesn't matter anymore. Bam.
Yeah.
Just sounds great. All right, so
I think you should play it if you're a Hummingbird fan, because it's a lovely, lovely one.
The Hummingbird. This was my guitar that got away. The guitar I've just given you is, for me, I think the most iconic Gibson acoustic.
Definitely.
And actually, I think its nickname it was a J45 Working Man. I loved that because I just thought it was always in the range as a slightly plainer model, a slightly more affordable model, aimed. I mean, I know it's probably a bit of a stretch to sort of go the average working man's going to do $5,000 on an acoustic guitar. I get that, but that was at the time, that was its place.
Yeah, they called it the workhorse, didn't they?
And I just think it's just. Of all, I think, square shoulder dreadnought, I sit and go, okay, has he got a Hummingbird? Maybe I might go do 28, that sort of thing. J45, I just think it's its own thing, and nobody does that thing better than that guitar.
I really like them. I've said it a few times. I hadn't played that many before I started working here, and then I seem to play loads, and they're great. I really, it's my kind of, I think it's my favourite big body guitar.
The grain on these tops is just exquisite. So tell us about.
Well, it's not even just the tops. It's the back and the sides have got. If you, I mean, I'm sure played loads of old acoustics, and it's these kind of wear patterns where it rests on your leg.
Well,
and all that stuff.
I'm just boring this one for people that have heard this story before, but I bought a Martin D35, 1972 D35.
Yeah.
It was entirely down to like an anniversary present because it's the year I was born. And I'd taken some advice around what brands should I avoid, and the general consensus was, actually avoid almost anything from the 70s apart from Martin. It's like the only brand really that through that decade made good quality American acoustics. Bought it sight unseen, got all the advice, different people I knew in America, but I had to buy it from a dealer in America, had it shipped over. It was about £4,000, so not cheap at all. Got it, and was hugely underwhelmed by it when I got it, and was really fortunate that about a year after I'd had it, Martin sent a guy called Dave Doll, who's the head of their repair shop around the UK, just to sort of do some workshops with dealers. Cool. And I said to him, look at my guitar, would you, and tell me what you think. And Dave had a look, quick strum, and he literally went, the bracing, all the glue on the bracing's drying out, so the bracing's loose. It needs a neck reset, and honestly, whilst I might as well refret it for you as well. So I was like, wow. And that, like nobody tells you this stuff before you buy it.
No.
So anyway, the guitar went back to Martin in America, and it was gone for about 4 or 5 months, and it came back with everything done, and I'm eternally grateful to Dave for this because he didn't charge me a penny for this, but it had over £1,000 worth of repair work done to it. Top comes off, bracing re-glued, neck reset, refret, the whole thing. And I get it now because it's just epic sounding as a guitar. But I suppose that again, it's the roundabout way of sort of going, this is another upside of this. So I get it. It's never going to accrue in value like an original Gibson would, but you've got that guarantee. It's essentially its construction is going to be perfect.
Yeah.
It's not going to have all of those natural serviceable downsides to a guitar that might be 50 years old. But anyway, look.
That's it.
So you said this is based on a 42?
This is based on a 1942 version of the J45. Wow. The banner. It's called the banner model because it's got this little banner on the top that says only a Gibson is good enough.
Wow, that's true.
The banner models are widely regarded as some of the kind of best vintage Gibsons.
Yeah.
Made during wartime when Gibson weren't supposed to be making guitars at all. They were supposed to be making things for the war effort. But the women working in the factory were also making guitars kind of on the side. And those guitars have gone on to be some of the most desirable vintage Gibsons. Yeah.
I wonder what, so because Martin had a production line, they had to make sort of like rifle butts and other things out of wood that would be for the war.
Yeah, I guess so, like some kind of munitions effort thing.
Wow.
But,
and then sneak a few guitars in on the side.
Yeah, there's a book that I really want to read, because I was learning about this when I was learning about these guitars. There's a book called The Kalamazoo Gals, which is all about the women who worked in the factory. I really want to read it. But
let's have a little listen.
J45.
Yes.
So again, like big chords. I'll try and do some different big chords, but just playing a G chord on a guitar like this is so satisfying. I'm going to get there in the end. So. That's something else.
Different sense. So not as bass heavy as the Hummingbird.
No.
But, we talk about that sort of balanced tone that sometimes a slightly smaller guitar than the Dreadnought offers. So where perhaps the mid-range isn't quite so overwhelmed by the bass end. And what a great looking guitar as well.
This is just a beautiful J45. That's the first time I've played it, because you had it, as soon as it came out the case. And that's really one of the nicest ones I've played. I do love it.
I see John Lennon. He was always synonymous for that, playing that style of guitar. And again, for me, I love that it's not bling. You know what I mean? No. Again, for everything that I love about the scratch plate and the split inlays and everything, and the perhaps, I don't know, slightly more louder kind of colour, if you like, that you get on the Hummingbird. I just love that that's like, no, I'm just here. I think
it's brilliant. I mean, I know that they started using this kind of burst finish to hide inconsistencies in the wood tops.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's why they. Wow. So it was so that you couldn't. So if there was so you couldn't see the difference in the grain, because it was their workhorse guitar. So it wasn't the cheapest model. That was something like that. But yeah, so that's why it's got this great kind of brown sunburst.
I don't know how many more years I will work in guitars and still find stories out like that. But isn't that amazing? Just like what has ended up being arguably the most iconic of all guitar finishes, whether it's electric acoustic, a burst. People talk about the 59 burst, like it's just and you go, so why did that use that in the first place? Like, well, because just to hide all the bad grain. It's like, what?
I know.
Mental. I love it.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
Right, so whilst Ben is changing over here, I'll just quickly mention the two guitars we don't have, and we'll perhaps show them on screen now. One of them is absolutely another iconic Gibson guitar, so the J200 or SJ200. So the Super Jumbo, it's enormous, again, had tons and tons of famous users. I mean, if you're of my age or whatever, you're probably going to think of Noel Gallagher playing that style of guitar, but of course its history goes back way, way, way further than that. So it's a shame we don't have one of those today. We'll have to do that next time you're here. But that's the absolute loudest, like biggest
Huge,
sounding acoustic ever.
Maple loud.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, all those things. And the other one that's missing is, I would say, probably arguably the least iconic, perhaps, of the Gibson acoustic range. So it's the Southern Jumbo.
Yeah.
Although it's perhaps it's perhaps probably the style that's most copied by acoustic guitars generally. You know, it's the Dreadnought. So, but yeah,
it's the difference really is that these two have both got mahogany back and sides, whereas the Southern Jumbo's got rosewood. So
right. It's almost like their version of a D28 or something.
So it's kind of similar but different.
Yeah, similar but different. So we'll have to revisit those. Anyway, any excuse to redo another guitar video with these guitars. So maybe next time. Right now, each model is only available in a single colour, so you can see what they are. And I would imagine certainly Andertons will have all 5 in stock as and when they arrive. But that's the beauty, I think, of this concept of relic or age vintage guitars, is that you can go to most good guitar stores and try a selection, whereas if you went, where do I go to try original ones, it's just like hardly anywhere.
Yeah,
but anyway, so okay, I know that you love a small-bodied acoustic guitar. Why is that? I'm surprised that, I'm not surprised after you told me the story, but before you told me the story, I was a bit surprised that it was only available in black, because it's kind of like not a traditional acoustic colour for me. But
that was to make it period correct, because a 1932 version of the L-00, which was only available in black, unbound, back and sides, it was the bottom of the range when it came out, but it was still quite an expensive guitar compared to the Stellars and Harmonies at the time. But I love little parlours. I love this guitar.
Can't believe it's nearly 100 years since that guitar came out, can you?
It's over 100 years.
1932.
Oh, 32. Sorry, what am I talking about? Yeah.
That's all right. It's fine. Just cut that in and just go. Yeah. You're right, Lee.
You're right, Lee. That's amazing.
Hang on.
90 years.
Well, look. So on a small-bodied guitar, I see you've put your thumb pick on. Are you going to approach this as stylistically a different vibe to the big strummy kind of thing?
I mean, I really like small acoustic guitars for strumming and stuff, but yeah, they're really suited for fingerstyle, and I think Robert Johnson was supposed to play an L1, which was one up from here, similar body size. So for that kind of thing, this does all the job.
Sell your soul to the devil and show us what this thing can do.
I love the neck on this as well. It's got the original big V chunky neck, which is great. So
is that sorry for that? Would that have had a truss rod originally? Because a lot of those real early big chunky necks were specifically because they weren't adjustable, and they obviously. So we might.
Do you know what? I don't know about the Gibson.
We'll have to. Maybe you can comment below. Maybe we'll ask one of our editors to research and put that on the screen below. But yeah, obviously these all do have truss rods.
I was going to say, I have a feeling the Gibsons might, because they were slightly higher end. I know, like the Silvertones and Harmonies and stuff. Didn't, because I've just paid to have one put in mine. But yeah, this is, let's see how this sounds, shall we?
Definitely going to hell. It's just like, great. All right, well.
It's lovely. I could just happily plonk myself down on the sofa and play this all day.
Well, why don't I play some big sloppy chords on this thing, and you do the same on that, and that's what you guys can play out to.
Can I play some slide?
Please do. So there you are. Links below. These are not the sort of guitars that we're expecting people just to buy on the internet, but of course you're welcome if you want to. So if you want to take a day out, come down to Guildford, come to our guitar gallery.
Yeah.
You'll be able to check some of these out in person. But yeah, look. Every time I do a video with you, I leave the room going, must go and practice my acoustic guitar a bit more. And then I never do. But yes.
Every time I play these, I think I must steal a kidney or something.
Well, that's very true, yes. All right, well, thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy what you're watching. And thank you so much, Ben. It's lovely to see you again.
A pleasure.
Incredible playing, as always. So, yes. Right, see you guys next time.